Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with Jonathan Edmondson. Jonathan, it's great to have you on the program.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Jonathan is the Chief Executive Officer of Koshee. It is a company that is very much focused on building on-prem AI for real-time video intelligence. They use a much smoother idea when they talk about it, optimize security through systematic machine learning. So, no doubt today we're going to be talking a lot about artificial intelligence and machine learning. But before we get there, we're going to talk a little bit about Jonathan. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Okay, great. Well, I spent over 20 years integrating technology into real-world enterprises, kind of processes and systems, but was really influenced in my early career as an accountant and process engineer for a large shipping company. And this was in the very early stages of globalization in the early 2000s, and I had a front row seat for the enterprise digital transformation that wave that followed. This period has a lot of clear parallels to the AI transformation that you see today. A lot of this technology is really just new forms of automation. And a lot of this technology is not even new. A lot of it's been around for years, decades.
Yeah.
What we really learned about scaling and automation in the real world is around a lot of the failures that we've had during that period of time. First, successful tech integration is done by optimizing what's called a system, right? Which is made up of people, processes, and technology. And a lot of the failures that we had back then were maybe focusing too much on the technology and not too much on the people and processes that were actually part of the system. The other key thing about
Jonathan, people are always the problem.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of talk about people actually in all of the narratives and kind of everything that's kind of going on in the space today.
Yeah.
It's all about, automation or removing people, which I think is a bit dangerous in terms of how you're looking at these things.
Yeah.
But, really, automation is really built on data, and bad data is terrible, right? I mean, it is the thing that can really hamper or completely destroy any kind of automation process. That's something that was clear back then. It's clear now too. And at the micro level, systems need to improve continually. And this is to get past that early adoption wave that always happens with technology. I mean, you're going to get the early adopters. It's how do you get past that is one of the biggest challenges. And what they did back then and what we still do today is something that we call systematic learning. And you mentioned that when you introduced me. It's part of our kind of core component. And it's built on really techniques from Japanese manufacturing in the 1980s, the concepts of Lean and Six Sigma. That when you integrate these into processes, these processes can evolve over time. And that's kind of one of the fundamental components of our approach to this specific thing, which is, using AI or automation into different processes. Really, after the shipping and a lot of that kind of early experience, I spent the next 10 years integrating these learnings and technology into service businesses from transportation to retail to technology and construction even. In 2020, my brother James and I founded Koshee. And James is a PhD in roboticist with over 20 years of experience in academia and AI research. And so our focus has really been on enabling and scaling these people-based processes with cutting-edge technology. So in essence, Koshee is the culmination of decades of enterprise experience from both the people and the technology perspectives. And we're applying this knowledge to reshape technology solutions for industries that are really overlooked, which are enterprise services.
Okay.
So we've kind of our research has been focused really on two different verticals within that space, which is construction and security.
Very cool. I mean, now I love the story. I love the fact that it's two brothers working together, building out Koshee. And it sounds like you've selected a couple of verticals that you guys are working on. Tell me a little bit about where you are with some of that work.
Yeah, actually this year at ISC West in Vegas, we're excited to be presenting a product that we've been researching for the last 4 years. And it's a security and law enforcement focused platform that we call Koshee Protect. So during the event, James is going to give a lecture to discuss a little bit about our research findings that we've done over the last 4 years around computer vision and specifically with applications to CCTV cameras. So two main focuses of that research has been around real-time anomaly detection from a security camera, but also forensic video analysis. So, and after we do the lecture, we're going to be doing a live demo showing retail theft, which is one of the harder use cases for computer vision. I mean, it's something that has been a real struggle within the security industry for decades.
So tell me how that would work. So essentially, you're building a tool to essentially analyze the video and see patterns, or how does it work?
Yeah, so the big challenge of AI is the real world. Like, that's the one thing that is extremely difficult to solve. It can solve a lot of things in the digital world, like things where data is very structured or systematic and captured in different parts of the process. But when you bring this to the real world, what you really find is that there's a huge disconnect between, a lot of these AI model benchmarks and real world performance. So really a lot of our early study was around how do you research, the research and testing of models, like what works in the real world, because it's one of the most impossible things to solve. And the way that what we found from our research, there are a lot of things that we found from our research, kind of starting from ground zero. But one thing that you find that is very different than how the current market is headed in this is that specialized vision detection models actually work way better than generic classifiers when you look at accuracy, latency, and throughput. So this is a complete disconnect from where everybody's going, which is I just need bigger models that detect everything, and I want this kind of generic classifier that works through it. And so has a lot.
Would you say that's narrower but deeper? Maybe is that?
It's specialized. So let me just kind of go through, there's three concepts that we found in research, So the first is that you use certain models for certain detections, right? Like the concept being that you don't take one model and try to detect everything with it, right? So if you have a camera that's pointed at your front door, do you really need a general classifier, or are you just trying to count the people coming in your front door? So just by specializing on it and the type of movement that you're getting in that environment really helps to create a much better classifier. The other thing that is very important with machine learning specifically is something called distribution shift. And so what we do with our models when we first go into a new environment is it needs to learn in that environment. So it's going to be trained before you bring it into that environment, but then you also want it to learn that environment so that it knows, like in a hospital lobby, that lighting, that unique lighting in the hospital lobby, or that color behind your retail shelf, that has an impact on the accuracy of your detections. So that's one of the things that we focus on in the early stages. And this is where we integrate that, what we call systematic learning, which is that continual process of we're going to start with a model and then it's going to learn over time. So that memory and reinforcement process is actually where the Koshee name comes from. It's super nerdy, but it is a mathematical term around a concept called a Koshee sequence, which is a French mathematician named Augustin Koshee. That's where Koshee gets his name. It's just a phonetic spelling of that French.
I think that we certainly need to be thinking more about the systematic machine learning elements and how almost every area, especially ones that you're highlighting that touch the real world, continue to learn and get better. And I mean, it's amazing that you're rolling these things out. It sounds like you're sharing this at a industry event, which is great. But, when you're chatting with folks kind of in that security world about kind of how they're thinking about this space, what's top of mind for them, for the customers that would actually use this?
Well, I think it comes down to two things, I would think. It's accuracy, right? And that has a direct trade-off in machine learning and in any kind of AI model performance. This is a big thing that OpenAI found, what they call scaling laws, which means that if you increase the size of your model and you increase the size of your data set and the amount of compute that you put into it, you can make accuracy better. So it's like this linear path that you keep putting resources at it and you can make it more accurate. Well, that works great in the cloud, right? So when resources are not a constraint, that you can do that, right? You can just keep scaling it, and the accuracy goes up. But in the real world, you need both. Especially for a live camera system where you're running, say, 30 frames per second on a camera and you got 1,000 cameras, you can't just be throwing this stuff in the cloud and see what happens.
Right.
So they need both. They need both accuracy and speed. And so like that's why we built our platform. It's an integration of hardware, software, and models all together so that we can actually scale with accuracy. And so we're actually like compared to other systems that are in the market, like what they're mostly doing is they're just making, creating really small models that can run on an edge device and things like that. But we're going, or they go the other way, which is to use a large vision language model, and then they just run it really slow, and accuracy is also pretty bad because it's only trained on the internet. But they're limited. Like a lot of these solutions in the market, they're getting like 1,000 detections per hour. Like we have some of our competitors, like they market that. I got 1,000 detections. We get millions. So our technology, like because we have different types of models that we run, which have accuracies kind of built into how we build it, and we have a hardware profile that actually is optimized for this. Like we can get 1,000x multiple on most of our kind of competition types of products, and it's because they don't really understand these things that you learn in robotics that are very specific.
Well, I can only imagine this is going to get more valuable. And certainly, as one of the things that I felt when I was recently out in Silicon Valley is that everyone's kind of very excited about this robotic age that is right around the corner for all of us. And
Yeah.
and I can see how some of the technology that you're applying could really fit well into that space as well.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we've built is it's a robotic brain that just hooks into your network. So instead of walking around your environment, it's just pulling all of your data feeds from live cameras, and then it's processing like a robot would. So by not having it walk around, you can solve a lot of, or you can simplify what you're trying to solve for. But it has a lot of, it really comes from James's background as he spent a lot of time and experience, with different, distributed AI robotic systems, in his research. So it's kind of applying these to more of a security context, which is very unique. Like, I mean, you look at what else the other products in the market, and it's very unique.
Yeah, and I can see that. Well, I mean, Jonathan, did you and your brother, did you build this on top of an existing algorithm, or is this kind of a unique system and that you
Yeah,
that
it's built from the ground up. We built our own
okay.
models, so we have our
Okay.
own machine learning team. Like this is very unique for the security industry.
Wow.
We build our
And I
models.
suppose that's great because that adds a level of security in and of itself,
Yeah,
right?
because
So,
it's locally deployed. It's just like a robot, right? I mean, you can't have a robot crossing the street and have to ping the internet in order to get all the way across, right? You have to disconnect it. Like our system is actually meant you can unplug it, and as long as you have the cameras feeding, and you don't need the internet to run the models, which again is super unique. But that's how you have to solve it, because if you have to send this stuff into the cloud, it doesn't work. It's too slow.
yeah.
And you know how cloud cost is going these days. I mean,
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that because, it's one of those fascinating things in the machine learning space, which is, and it's happened in other technology curves, but certainly this is mapping it, I'd say, an even greater curve, which is there's been suppressed costs related to, what utility in the short term, but the costs are there. I mean, the costs for a lot of this stuff are significant. And I keep reading obviously about like new things that are coming out that might kind of cut costs a little bit down the road. But how do you keep up with all of these like shifts that we see in the broader kind of infrastructure and ecosystem space around AI?
Well, I mean, you have to, one, control helps, right? So, like being able to build your own models and actually your hardware to fit your models. Like, we don't need the same hardware that you need for large vision language models. We don't need data centers. You don't need any of that. So, one is focus on what works and simplify to the extent you can. But it's also human.
It's funny. You're kind of describing from a technology perspective the same thing we've seen to date regarding what actually is working in the AI space. When things are very acute and they focus on a specific problem, those AI solutions tend to work better and are more lasting. But the ones that try to kind of be everything and nothing at the same time, you have that kind of what you were talking about, kind of like a dip in a way where the usage starts and then it drops, and you go forward from there. So I think
Well, I
this
mean,
idea of what you're designing, a purpose-built security capability, is great.
yeah, because I mean, really a big part of it is for any technology. And so this is the big challenge you have in enterprise today is around adoption. So like if
Hmm.
you've got these huge breakthroughs in AI, but outside a few kind of specific use cases like coding, enterprise adoption has really lagged. And so you've got like this thing, like you've got all this money going into it and they're not able to get past that into the ROI space. And I think a big part of this is structural for
Yeah,
enterprises
yeah,
because and you see this in technology across the board, and this goes back to my experience with this with a lot of, like accounting, like when we outsourced and automated a lot of these processes, that technology can be a huge tool for empowerment of teams, but it's really not about replacing human decision making with AI. I
right.
mean, it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
And so even at and one of the key reasons the
Although I
structure.
would say the problem is I feel like a lot of almost all of the AI systems, the way that they're positioning themselves is to be almost like magic,
Right.
like that they somehow magically do stuff. But you're absolutely right. Collaboration is critical. And, making sure you have like that collaboration and that critical reasoning area is still like vital.
Well, you can't automate accountability, right?
Right.
So, like, who's responsible? If something breaks, like, you can't blame your agent, right? You got to, like, there's got to be some name next to it. It doesn't matter.
Jonathan, that is very quotable. You can't
Right.
automate accountability. I like
Right.
that.
And so it has to be human centered. And this is really where my experience comes in, versus James. James, obviously, he views it the same way. But it's about making your team extremely optimized and efficient, but it's not about replacing them, which is
Right.
a very differing view than what you see out there in the space. It's all
Yeah.
about, and that's why humanoids, they get all this attention because it's about, like, why would you build it like a human? It's because that's the kind of how you get money right in the space is so crazy, like how
Yeah.
this is kind of, but really success with any kind of integration, it starts with people, so you got to engage them as part of the process, and part of that is transparency and feedback. So one of the big challenges you have with large vision language models or large language models is they're like black boxes. It's very difficult to know why they made a decision. It's hard to trace it. Why did it go wrong? Why did it make that decision?
Right.
And so that's another key differentiator in how our platform is built. You see detections as they come through. Like, it's not like you're just sitting in the cloud and just sending me back what works.
Yeah.
And because if you do that, you're just hiding the inaccuracy, right? You're not actually improving it over time.
Yeah.
And that's how you get adoption, is because you need people to start giving you that feedback. Hey, this gave me the wrong detection. Hey, this was a great detection. Like, that's how you build out the system. That's how you make it better over time. And it allows them to learn the system and trust it, because trust is so important for adoption of people.
Well,
And so
Jonathan, let me shift gears a little bit here because, we've been talking about systematic machine learning and really what Koshee's rolling out with Koshee Protect, which is very exciting. But tell me a little bit more about you. Clearly you have a passion for building these types of things. Where does that come from?
Well, I mean, so like I said, I spent my early career traveling and really seeing different cultures, different places. So the human element, like I just value it significantly in terms of how I see things. Technology is also important. Like, it's about productivity, about human potential. So, like, I think at least in terms of where James and I have both focused on the specific application, it's these are real problems. So we got into this specifically in the security space because of school shootings. James and I are from Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep.
And we've had several very high profile school shootings and other events. This should be solved. Like, from me and James's perspective, like, why is this not solved? Why has no
Yeah.
one solved this? And so we actually got approached by one of our security partners, and they said, hey, we've looked at a bunch of different technologies that are out there, but no one solved this. Detecting guns is like, there's not really a solution out there that just detects guns and you can see the gun detection and it alerts you and you go out there. There's lots of things where you send it into the cloud, and if it gives you a gun detection, someone might call you, but like, you don't know when it doesn't detect. You don't know if it actually gave you the detection. And so, like, that's what brought us on this journey, is that concept that you could use technology for that, that gain as a society and improving the future, which I think is a big part of why we got into this.
Yeah.
this
Well,
specific-
I think that's a great example, and it's a tragic issue in the US, and anything that can help us resolve those types of challenges is going to be critical. But I mean, obviously, also as you build this model out, I can see how it can be applied to so many other areas, which is really, really exciting. As we look forward, though, Jonathan, as we all know, everything changes every 5 minutes now. Tell me a little bit what's on the docket for you and the team for the rest of this year.
Well, right now we're really focused on the law enforcement sector. So like one of the challenges that they have is around video evidence in the United States, CCTV cameras, I mean, really everywhere, but CCTV camera footage is increasing by about 7% per year. They've got about, 50 million plus cameras every single, recording every single day. Like law enforcement, one of the challenges that they run into is they just can't process all that video data, right? So like you're canvassing a neighborhood, some event happened. How do you take all that data and actually make it meaningful without having to manually watch 20 days of footage, right?
Yeah.
Just like the quality of life of that has to be, one, it's just resources.
It's always easy in the TV shows, John.
Right.
They just
Right.
go in and look at the video and they catch the bad guy right away.
Right. Yeah. So like, I mean, our platform, and this is from testing of like real cases. We partnered with various law enforcement agencies, and like I was saying, like a lot of these platforms out there are doing 1,000 object detections an hour, and then at the end of it, you can search it and say, the guy in the red hat. But it took 17 hours processing to get there.
Yeah.
We're able to do it. So based on testing, we can do. Based on a couple of tests or cases that we ran. We ran 10 days of footage. It took us about 50 minutes to process it. And it processed, over 2 million object detections, accurate object detections.
Wow.
Might have,
What a valuable resource for law enforcement. Incredible.
Right. And it allows you to kind of, just dig through that large data set. It takes that unstructured data set and then makes it into a very easy way to kind of navigate it and search it. And we created this new technology called Tracker, which allows you to just upload an image and then it will search the database and find all the people that meet that description. And it doesn't use facial detection. So like in one case that we tested, we just had an image of a guy in a mask, and we gave it the guy with the image with the mask, and it gave you a digital lineup of everybody that's in the data set that is the closest to that person with a mask, which is remarkable to even think that you can do that with AI, but it is possible, and we've proven it through multiple use cases that make it extremely valuable.
Well, Jonathan, it's been great talking with you. I think that the thing that really stands out to me is one, Koshee is bridging the kind of the virtual world with the real world, coming out with solutions that are actually getting into real world life where normally kind of these systems have challenges, and that's really, really valuable. Two, it's two brothers working together, which is a very exciting thing in and of itself. And, three, the fact that this can be applied in so many other areas, but applies kind of a theory that's different than a lot of other AI development. I think that it's a real kind of very powerful counter voice or, counterpoint, right? Which is as some players are going for those just massive models, you're really looking to solve real problems, which is excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because like that's really where the value is, right? For technology, is if it doesn't solve a real problem, like if you're just a hammer looking for a nail, everything looks like a nail, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you design a tool that's actually built for the specific purpose, you can get a lot more value out of it and a much higher ROI in a very shorter time frame. And that's why I think enterprises will really benefit from kind of a different perspective than what some of the other tools that are out there. And so that's why we built it the way we did. And
Jonathan, if someone wanted to learn more about Koshee, where's the best place to go?
So for the product, Koshee, we have a website, koshee.ai, but we also have, for the product specifically, it's protect.koshee.ai for looking at our Koshee Protect product. Also, if you're at ISC West at the end of March in Vegas, we're based in Vegas, so it's like our home field. So you can also you can catch us there. And then also, if you're in town, we'd love to show you around Vegas and show you a little bit about what we do. So we're not hard to find. I'm also on LinkedIn, so I do post a lot on LinkedIn if there's any interest in the security space or AI specifically, or even
Jonathan, I can only imagine the casinos will love this. They'll want to watch all their tables, make sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Right. There's lots of applications, obviously.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the show today. We've been speaking with Jonathan Edmondson. He is the CEO of Koshee. They are in the process of rolling out Koshee Protect, and I've talked a little bit about where you can see that in the very near future. Working really on applying systematic machine learning to security challenges. Mostly, it sounds like video security solutions right now, and
Yeah.
optimizing that and making sure that we have solutions, acute solutions that work quickly, and then obviously, utilizing that type of approach to scale it as well. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great. Thanks a lot for the invite. All right, bye.